Thanks, said Peter. Just what I need. It should be easy to get Jess down. I have the digger on the tractor, and it goes really high on the hydraulic gear. I'll put it as high as it can go, then drive up to your edge with the bucket as near to that tree as I can. Then Jess can jump into the bucket, and I can lower it gently to the ground."
"He wouldn't jump into a box on the end of a stick," said Dr. Gilbertson. "And how's that cough of yours?"
"Oh, it's a lot better, thanks, Doctor," said Peter. "But a tractor's bucket's different from a box. It's a lot bigger for one thing."
"It's worth a try, I suppose," said the doctor. "Now don't you forget to come for some more medicine if that cough starts up again. All right, stand back, everybody. We're going to try again."
There was a roar as the tractor started up, and they all saw the large bucket coming over the hedge. Jess had such a fright when he saw it that he went still further up the tree, and then Pat saw what was going to happen, and he shouted, "Stop! Stop, Peter, stop!" But the engine was making such a noise that Peter didn't hear him. There was a great crunching and grinding sound, and the tractor came right through the hedge. Oh dear, what a mess there was.
"What happened?" shouted Sarah.
"Oh, I'm ever so sorry," said Peter. "I was so busy watching Jess and the tree that I forgot there was an edge in the way. I've made quite a big hole in it, haven't I?" Just then Mrs. Pottage and the twins came along. Sarah gave them a cup of tea each and told them what had happened.
"Don't worry about the hedge," said Mrs. Pottage. "We have plenty of spare fence posts in our barn. Peter can bring some round tomorrow and mend that hole."
The cat-up-a-tree party was getting bigger and bigger. Mrs. Goggins came next, then Alf and Dorothy Thompson. Pat dashed indoors to get the best tea service out, and Sarah brewed more tea. Julian filled the sugar basin, and Katie and Tom helped him to hand biscuits round. George Lancaster came with 24 eggs, and Miss Hubbard, passing on the way to church to arrange the flowers, stopped to see what was going on. Not one of them could think of a way of getting Jess down from the tree.
"We'll soon have all Greendale in our garden," said Sarah. "It's a good thing this doesn't happen every day. We'd never have enough biscuits to go round."
Then Ted arrived back from Carlisle. He called to ask Pat if he would like to go fishing in his boat next Saturday. They were telling him to go for the ladder all at the same time. He was trying to work out why they wanted a ladder at that time of day, and someone dropped a cup just as the kettle started to whistle yet again, and there was a fine old rumption when Granny Dryden walked up the garden path. She banged her stick on the path and stopped them all in their tracks. "Whatever's going on?" she demanded to know. "Well, it's Jess, you see," Pat began.
"Do sit down and have a cup of tea and a cake," said Sarah.
"Thank you very much," said Granny Dryden. "Is it a party? Is it Jessie's birthday party?" "Well, no, not really," said Pat. "I know it looks like a party, but—" "Where is Jess? I haven't seen him today at all."
"That's what we're trying to tell you," said Sarah. "Jess is up that tree and he's stuck, and we've all been trying to get him down."
"Trying to get him down? Keeping him up there more like, poor Jess up that tree all this time?" Granny Dryden sounded cross. "Well, we've done our best to get him down," said Pat. "Honestly, Granny Dryden, we've done our best. Ted's going to get the ladder, and we'll soon have Jess down now." "That cat's too high for any ladder," said Granny Dryden. "But if you all do as I say, he'll soon be down, and you won't need any ladder."
"Can you get him down, Granny Dryden?" said Mrs. Goggins, astonished.
"Of course I can," said Granny Dryden rather sharply. "I've seen cats in trees before any of you were born. It's an old tale, that one, about cats not being able to get down from trees. It's not true. It's just folks making a fuss and a stir that gets 'em into a state, and they just won't come down then. Jess'll never come down with all this coming and going. If you all go home and get your tea, Jess'll come down in his own good time, you'll see."
"It's the wisdom of age," said the Reverend Timms. "I think we should all try taking Granny Dryden's advice. Our Lord works in mysterious ways."
"It's just common sense," said Granny Dryden. "That's all. Away you go home, every last one of you, and you'll see I'm right." One by one they all went home.
"But will you stay and come in for some tea, Granny Dryden?" said Sarah.
"Only if you let me help with the washing up," said Granny Dryden. "You must have a right bonny pile of it." They had, and it took a good long time to get it all washed and dried and put away. But they had a good tea, with toast and crumpets and scones, and they had a good talk about all the news of the valley. All this time Jess had the garden and the tree to himself, apart from the birds, that is, and they didn't like it a bit, having a cat in their tree. But it was much quieter now that everyone had gone, and Jess was beginning to feel really hungry. He thought he might just try his claws to see if they would hold him as he went down backwards. He got down one branch. There was more tumbling in it than climbing, and this was a very scratchy tree. Down another branch. Ouch! It was also a prickly tree. Another branch. Slowly, very slowly, Jess was working his way down the tree. In the house, Sarah was saying,
"I hope our Jess is all right. Do you think I should pop out and see how he's getting on?"
But Granny Dryden said, "Certainly not. He'll get on much better without anyone fussing round him. You'll see. Just get on with your tea, and you'll soon see your Jess safe and sound. He's a clever cat. He can take care of himself. We had a cat like Jess when I was a young lass. It could have been his great-grandad. He was always going up trees. I remember once," and Granny Dryden told them a story of long ago. All this time Julian was hiding behind the curtains, peeping out into the garden. He couldn't see Jess because the pine tree's needles and branches hid him. But he could see the tree shaking as Jess tumbled his way down it. And he could see the startled birds fussing and scolding at Jess. The shaking crept closer and closer to the ground. At last a very rumpled cat jumped from the lowest branch onto the grass. It ran to the house to scratch at the door to be let in, and oh, what a fuss they all made of him. "There you are," said Granny Dryden. "I told you he'd do it. Good old Jess, just like his great-grandad. Clever Jess." Jess jumped on her knee, and she cuddled and stroked him, and he soon began to purr. Pat, Sarah, and Julian gave him a cuddle, and then Jess asked politely for his tea. Sarah opened a tin of sardines for him as a special treat. "Look at his fur," said Pat. "He looks as though he's been through a hedge backwards."
"He's done better," said Julian. "He's been through a tree backwards."
The tree had rubbed Jess's fur the wrong way. It was sticking out in all directions, and it was full of pine needles that itched and prickled. "I know what he is," said Granny Dryden. "One of these people they talk about on television. What do they call them? Punks. Is that it? Yes, he's Jess, the punk cat."
"Oh, poor old Jess," said Sarah. "He looks like an unmade bed. He needs a good brushing. That'll get the needles out, and then he'll feel a lot better. Won't you, Jess?"
Jess didn't like being brushed, but it did get the needles out, and he did feel better. Well enough, indeed, to go looking for mice after tea in Mrs. Pottage's barn. But it was a long time, a very long time, before he climbed a tree again.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white hat.